What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Days Gone, a game that released on April 26, 2019. I actually tried to beat this game 2 different times, and by try and by beat, I mean I played this game twice, made it about 2 to 3 hours. This was a terrible period of my life where I just could not even get 5 or so hours into a game, and I could not do it. I made the decision I would say about 2 weeks ago to go back into the game and really try it, go through the entire thing, play as much of it as I can. I have done that. I have played 43 hours of the game, rolled credits, got a good amount of trophies. I still have to beat all the hordes and stuff, but I did almost everything there is to do in this game, and boy, do I have some opinions. This game was kind of plagued early on, right when it first came out. There was a lot of hype around it, obviously coming from Ben's studio. They made Uncharted Golden Abyss, which is, in my opinion, a very, very underrated, game in general, and then also a Vita game, right? You need to get it. You need to save the Vita. And they obviously made Days Gone next, and that's a huge jump. It took them forever to make it, but it was a gigantic jump from one game to the next, considering open world zombie game, right? All of this stuff. The game does feel very Uncharted. That's something that I very quickly noticed. I don't think I really even did notice it, 3 years ago when I had first played it. This game feels very much in the actual combat. When you're swinging something or when you're shooting in this game, it feels very much like Uncharted. There are actually some story beats in this game that are, I think, ripped directly out of Uncharted 4. One scene with Deacon and Sarah that they fall almost on top of each other and they share a laugh is literally scene to scene the exact same thing as Uncharted 4 with Nate and Elena. So I found some things to kind of almost be odd how similar it actually was to Uncharted, and I don't honestly think that's a positive. I think that's a negative. It's like I've already seen this and I've seen it better. But here's the deal. This game was very mixed, right? It came out, it had very low scores, quote unquote, right? It had basically low 70s. That's kind of where this game lied, and it was an okay game. Now, of course, you had the game journalists that went after kind of racial things in the game and stuff. I hate that stuff. That stuff wasn't productive back then to do, and I'm not going to talk about that right now. But in terms of did the game deserve the scores that it got, I actually think the answer is yes. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I actually think the answer is yes. This game does some incredible things. At its best, it is a really fun ride. There's some awesome characters in this game. There is a story, and I would say a pretty solid story, but it kind of goes all over the place. We'll talk about I really want to kind of do a deep dive here. There are some major issues, right? For all the good, for everything good about this game, I can easily find at least one bad thing to match it. And I think, and again, I don't think the game is awful, but I don't think the game is great. I think it actually, again, deserves that. It's solid. It's a solid game that has its good moments and it has its bad moments. I still stay very strongly in the camp of this game deserves a sequel, and I think this game could actually learn a lot from a sequel, right? If they did a sequel to this game, I think you can learn so much from the good of what you did as well as the bad, right? And we have actually even heard of what some of the pitches for, a second game would be. Basically, cooperative. You would have a second player, which would work really well, I think, in this game. You can kind of tell, I think, and they did say they wanted to do it in Days Gone 1, and you can kind of tell. All right, so let's go over some of the positives first, and then we'll hit some of the negatives. Like I said, the characters, Deacon is definitely an up and down character, but I would say overwhelmingly he is good. We'll talk about some of the issues I have and some of the weird game things that they do throughout, it's very weird, but he's a very I would say he's a strong character. He's a strong protagonist. I do think a Boozer is pretty solid. I mean, an Iron Mike is a good character. Ricky is a good character. Schizo is you want to punch him in the face, which I do think honestly does make him a good character, right? Because you hate him so much and you want very bad things to happen to him by your hand as Deacon St. John. I think that means, I think that means good things in terms of how they set that up. So the characters, I would say, probably overwhelmingly are pretty good. And I think, again, that kind of highlights the major strength of this game, which is the writing. I think the writing overwhelmingly is the best part, besides the Hordes. Okay, the Hordes is, I guess, part 2. But the writing is probably a 1A, 1B strongest thing with this game. It's pretty consistent. There are some problems, but a lot of them are more audio issues or when certain things happen, or I'd say maybe even beats to the story. There are some strange things when it comes to the story where it's there's very good things that happens, and then all of a sudden they rush through things. I mean, the ending with the Colonel is one example I can think of, where it's like you think it's going to be something, and then it's just something completely separate, and I think it's very underwhelming. Actually, another example of that is Carlos. Carlos is a really cool character, and the Rippers are a cool concept of what the kind of clan is. And then when you eventually get there and then you fight him, again, like the game mechanics lets you down. I think that's kind of what I would say about this game, probably overwhelmingly, is there's a lot of good ideas in this, and then there's some really bad execution. A lot of things don't actually come together in the way that you would imagine. Now, again, that's why I wanted a sequel, because I think you can fix that stuff, because the concepts and what you want to do is good, and then you just have to execute on it, and I think that's, well, obviously we're not going to be able to get that. So the story, pretty darn solid, I would say, from start to finish. It's very long, and the way that it's set up in the quest is, I really don't like it, but the actual core story of what's going on, very Walking Dead-like, right? Kind of starts where, like, you know, there are the freakers, right? The actual zombies. They're the enemy. They're the things you have to worry about. They obviously took out society. But then as you go on, well, then there's like pockets, right? Again, like the Rippers that are like, okay, these guys are nuts. They're basically like the Whisperers. Like, they want to become a part of them. They kind of walk with, well, they kind of hint that they're going to walk with them, but they never actually do it, right? So there's things like that. And then as the game goes on, it's like, well, you know, they're a problem. Like, the Hordes are issues, but really humans are still the issues, and they're the biggest issues. And that's that's very zombie-like. That's very Walking Dead-like. Again, this game, I think, borrows from a lot of other things, and sometimes it does it well, and sometimes it does it not well. I would say, again, the Hordes and the actual gunplay, I'll give them credit for. Again, I think there's something special to how Uncharted feels. I really like the feel of Uncharted's combat. Now, it's not as smooth, or it's not literally, like if you played Uncharted 4, it's not literally that combat, but it's relatively close. I do like just shooting. I think it's got a good feel to it. I kept very similar gun types throughout the entire game. I became literally a pro, like a master shot as the game went on. I was just getting headshots every single time. Very, very good. And it helped me in Hordes too, because I was just nailing headshots from start to finish. So I liked it. I mean, I don't think there was anything massively creative about it, like the roll thing or anything like that. There's nothing really like special about it, but it was I would honestly say rock solid. The bike is definitely good. I think the bike is absolutely a highlight of this game. Feels good. You can obviously upgrade it as the game goes on, and once you get the bike like relatively fast, once you get it where like if you jump like a pothole, you don't end up breaking half your bike, right? Those are like problems in the beginning of the game where it's like you go up a hill and you jump. It clearly wanted you to do that, and then you lose like half your bikes. You know, you have to repair your bike after. And then when, you know, once the game keeps going, you keep leveling up, and then you're powerful enough, you can just do whatever you want with that bike, and you're going to be, you know, relatively safe. So I really do like, honestly, the bike mechanics. I like the camp mechanics of like the trust with them, and that unlocks when you can buy different guns. And I guess the final thing I would talk about in terms of positives is, I mean, I kept playing it, you know, like, and I don't want to say like, well, I did force myself. Like, there is a sense over the last, but that's just who I am as a gamer. The last 2.5 years, I've made a conscious decision to push myself to beat games that I play. I have beaten probably 50, 60 games in the last 2.5 years, which I haven't beaten 50 to 60 games in my entire life. So I don't say that as a detriment to Days Gone. I did push myself. Like, I you know, maybe I could have like gotten myself lost in multiverses or Rocket League or something else because I have ADHD. But I think the game was fun from start to finish. I did enjoy it from start to finish. I liked Deacon quite a bit from start to finish. I liked his relationship with Boozer and O'Brien and Sarah, and again, like the camp leaders, Iron Mike, you know, all these characters. I did like it. I really, really did. So it kept me engaged enough. Again, every time I got, you know, like super into it, it would kind of let me down. So that was definitely an issue with it, and it didn't make it easy, you know what I mean, to put in all the hours. But again, I think overwhelmingly I did enjoy it. The Hordes are a lot of fun. They're nuts, you know, as you get up there in the game and you take out the Hordes. It's not like the greatest thing of all time, like I think Twitter would make it believe. The Hordes are definitely fun, but it's not like the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. Yeah, I don't know. I maybe I wasn't powerful enough. Like, I always went to them like underpowered, even though I like had everything, and I'm like level 40 out of 45. Like, I'm pretty high, and yeah, I still am having trouble with the Hordes. So maybe that's just me as a player. But the Hordes are definitely good. Fighting them, they are like any kind of the infected. They're very scary. They're very formidable. Like if you're facing like, I guess as you get up there, if you face like 5 to 10, they're not really a big deal. Obviously there's like the special enemies, right? Those are a big deal. But when it's just like the normal ones, I do like though, you know, when you're early on in this game, taking out like 3 to 5 of them is a big deal. Like it's a lot. You probably want to stealth them, right? You don't actually want to like go up there and try and kill them. So I do like that. Like as you go on, a horde is like a horde you would never be able to do at the 5-hour mark of this game, right? But in the 40-hour mark, you know, you're going to stand a better chance and it's going to be more rewarding. So those are all positives. The negatives, I think this is a really poorly put together game in a lot of different ways. And I would honestly, I'd strike that up to it's their first time. This is a classic example, and actually there's really not a lot of other examples like this. Like you look at Akana Bridge of Spirits from Ember Lab, that was their first game. And of course, like you're going to go through growing pains where it's like, oh, maybe you messed up this or this, but like it was a smaller game. It was an indie game. It's like a 10-hour game. Days Gone is, you know, if you do everything, this is a 40 to 50-hour game. It's gigantic, right? It's big. And the thing is, it doesn't feel big. It feels very, very small. You visit the same locations a trillion times. I guess to be more fair, you visit the same spots, no joke, maybe like 3 to 5 times. Like if you go through a city to do an optional side quest, you're gonna probably, no, not probably, you will go back to that little town to do no less than 2 to 3 story missions. You continuously visit the same places. You continuously do the exact same thing every single time. The actual, you know, when you're like investigating and you're following footsteps, like I get it. There's only so many ways you can do those things in a game, but you're doing it over and over and over again. And not just that. Those are things that, you know, even like The Witcher can in some ways get a little repetitive. That's fine. The main thing with this game is, again, some of the mechanics. So what's so odd about this is like the quest structure. I've never seen, at least recently, I've never seen a game where it's like, so there's all these storylines and the quests just like keep popping, but they can be like 5-minute quests. So like you do a quest and then you go to a location and then all of a sudden like you're doing part 2 to that quest, but it's a different name. Or you hand in a quest, right? Right, every camp has a person that hands out jobs, right? So like Copeland has Copeland that hands it out. Tucker's camp, Tucker, right? So you go to them, you hand them in, right? And they're normally go hunt down this person. So you go, you hunt them down, you bring the thing back, you're done. You can leave the location and then like 30 seconds later, you can be going somewhere else. They'll call you on your radio and to say, we have a new quest for you. And Deacon will say, oh, you have a new job for me. Oh, I'll be right there. But I just left. The entire game is broken in, and this is a thing that people do actually point out about this game. I believe there's like at least 100 main quests, probably more in the game, 100. But some of them literally are 30 seconds of cutscenes. You will go into like a cabin, have a cutscene with Boozer. That was a main quest. That was a main quest. It gives you XP, and there, I guess there's nothing wrong with kind of free XP, but it just feels like so many of these things could have been condensed or combined into. You could have combined like 3 or 4 different quests into one. And the thing that's so off-putting is that there are story quests that, no joke, legitimately are 30 seconds. But then there also will be like the big story quests. Like, you know, again, like you think of a Witcher, you think of any open world game. The side quests, some of them are some optional things. They're tiny, they're small, they don't take all that much time. And then when you do like a big main quest, like it's a long thing. It can take a while. Days Gone has that, but they're all main quests, right? So it's like you have a main quest to do something, it'll take you 30 seconds, and then maybe you do a main quest right after, and it's like a 20-minute one that really advances the stories. There's no synchronization. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like it works, and it doesn't. It's very like off-putting, where it's like, why did you do it like that? I don't understand why you do it like that. And there's things like that throughout the entire game. The world is so big, and yet there's nothing in it, right? As it opens up, like, yes, there are a lot of hordes. There's probably like, oh my God, 25, 30 different, you know, horde sections, but it doesn't ever feel like, I mean, yes, you'll run into infected, you'll run into people, you know, kind of keeping a survivor like in a car, which again, by the way, is repetitive. It's the same thing over and over. Like, you'll run into those things, but overwhelmingly the world is pretty empty. And I guess it's supposed to be in a way, but it's also not, because they constantly call you at the radio, and the whole point is like, Deacon's alone, he's a drifter, but he's not really alone, because he's always getting phone calls, and he always does need to kind of talk to somebody, right? And he always does need people. So, you know, it wants you to, like, I don't know, it just feels so odd the way the world is. It doesn't feel populated enough. It doesn't feel like an open world in that sense. You have the bike mechanics of like the fuel that gets very annoying very early on in the game. There's technical issues. The sound, some of the sound or direction is atrocious in this game. Absolutely atrocious. Again, while I like Deacon overall, there are some times, and I like Sam Witwer, there's some times where if you don't have subtitles on, this is one of the most annoying games I think you'll ever play in your life. I truly believe that. In fact, my wife, who sat next to me, and she, on TikTok and out on different things, but she would watch some, she got engaged in the story, which is a good thing, right? But there were many times where she literally said, did they finish their sentence? Because I'll have subtitles on, and oftentimes you'll hear Deacon because he kind of like stutters or he mumbles, which is maybe his character, but it gets very annoying. And actually many characters do it. It's not just him, but he's the main culprit because he talks the most. They'll do like the first 60% of their line, and then the last 40, they'll either mumble through it or it'll be so quiet that you'll think that they didn't even say it. / maybe they didn't even say it. And that happens continuously. There's scenes where like Deacon is supposed to be giving a speech where he's talking to a group of people, and he's talking like this, like he's talking to one person. But how are you supposed to reach the people in the back? How does that, yet again, when Deacon is on a motorcycle, in fact, when he's on a motorcycle with Boozer and they're talking to each other, Boozer is talking in a normal, I know I don't talk in a normal, but Boozer does, talks at a normal volume, and then Deacon shouts really, really loud because maybe the engine's really loud, but at the same time, why isn't Boozer shouting if the engine's really loud? It doesn't make sense. So the audio, truly, the voice audio is some of the worst I've ever heard because there's mumbling, there's stuttering, maybe it's character. I don't want to make fun of it. I stutter, but it's like I just don't think that's supposed to happen, but maybe it is. But the mumbling definitely should not happen. And the audio levels, like, talk at a normal volume, or if you're supposed to yell, can all the characters yell, or why is it just one when the other one is sitting in the front seat of a freaking motorcycle? Why is one yelling and the other isn't? It doesn't make it's bad. It's really bad, and it doesn't make you want to listen to it. And again, truthfully, if I did not have subtitles on, and I have the TV relatively loud, if I didn't have subtitles on, I don't think I'd be able to hear probably 30% of the audio that happens in this game in terms of like conversation between characters. That is atrocious. Then you have, like I was saying, with the rushing through. So there are some, I guess, rushing through / like things not going the way you want them to go. And now here's the thing, like, I get it. Games do this, movies do it. I believe the quote is like subverting expectations, right? When you expect something to happen and then they kind of pull the rug and they do something else. This game does it quite often, and this game does it kind of annoyingly. I mean, you do technically get what you want. Like a lot of the things that happen in this game like end up working out for Deacon in a lot of different ways. But there's just some story decisions, I guess, where it's like you expect something to happen, they kind of just take a left, or like you think you're gonna be finishing kind of an arc and then you don't finish the arc. It's just very, again, like some of the beats, the story overall writing is pretty solid. I'm not against it. I like it. Now I have been told, like, my friend is very much a lot lower on this game than me. He says, like, very generic. It's been done before. They don't do anything new. I mean, in a way, yeah, there is nothing, even in the story, there is nothing, I would say, wholly original about the story whatsoever. It either copies, again, there's some scenes that are specifically from Uncharted 4. It's a little Last of Us-like. It's very much follows the beats of The Walking Dead. You got, like, this is kind of like outlaw, right, biker and Deacon. That's not necessarily new. Now, yes, a lot of games don't do anything new, right? So I will not hold it over it, but I have heard, from people that are a little bit more critical of this game than I am, that that it doesn't do almost anything original, which is fair. I think the Hordes really is that primary thing that makes the game stand out, if we're being honest. Even to those people, I think the Hordes is like the biggest thing. But it's an uneven game. Like, there's just some scenes that you think are going to go one way. Or, again, like a scene with Carlos. He's the leader of the Rippers, and you kind of, like, you feel like you're building up to something really, really cool, and then you get to the fight. And again, I mean, maybe it even reminds me a little bit of the ending of Uncharted 4 when you're sword fighting in the burning pirate ship, because there is kind of fire around you. But it's just, then the gameplay really lets you down, because it's a knife fight where you dodge, and then you slice him a couple times, you dodge, you slice, and you kill him. He drops dead, and then the cutscene is that you kill. It's like, it's so underwhelming from, again, I think the story wanted to be a little bit more bigger and a little bit more, you know, kind of like in your face, and then the gameplay, it cannot hold itself up. So again, it's just an uneven game. I know I probably came across like I didn't like it more than I liked it. I think it's because, again, for every strength, for every good thing this game does, there is an equal weakness. So it kind of builds you up where it's like, oh, Hordes are cool. But it's like, okay, well, even the Hordes, it's like you can have some issues with it. Either there's far too many, or it doesn't really feel like you're all that ready for it, or the ending of the game and the storyline, they just give you like 2 Hordes and like back-to-back story missions. So it's like, where was this earlier in the game? Why are you facing a Horde and then another Horde and then another Horde? Why are you doing this all at the very, very end, right? So like for every good thing, or even again, when there's like story things, then there's, you know, Sarah. Like, Sarah is a solid character in the flashbacks. Then you, and this entire thing has been spoilers, but spoiler, then when you find out she's alive and you're going through, then it's like, oh, I kind of don't like her. Like, I actually really don't. She gets better towards like the tail end, but overwhelmingly, once you meet her again, she is. And I get it, because like it's been 2 years and time has done things to everybody, although not really, because Deacon is still the same character from 2 years ago as right now. He's the exact same, but Sarah has changed, which is okay. I guess some characters develop and some characters don't. So Sarah is not really likable at all. I think that's probably fair. At least that's my opinion of her. That's what I think. She's not very likable. So even that, it's like, well, I like Deacon and Sarah's relationship actually quite a bit in the flashbacks. I like it. But then you get to the present time, it's like, oh, she's kind of like rude. Doesn't really seem like she loves him. Like, does she? And it's like, well, I guess she does. So she ends up, you know, kind of admitting that. But it's like, I just don't like it. So for everything good, oh, I like this thing. Oh, you actually kind of made it really bad. That happens quite often in this game. But the biggest thing that holds this game back, again, is I think how the game is actually structured. There's way too many quests. There's way too many going back to the same spots over and over to accept a quest. The repetitiveness, in terms of like side missions, there's like 2 to 4 things you can possibly do in this game, and that's it. And so you're just redoing those things over and over and over again. So there really is nothing special there when it comes to that stuff. The biggest strength, story, and characters. And again, the characters, I would say, are kind of uneven. Even like an Iron Mike, who you like, or at least I like, you know, even he had some times where it's like, oh, I'm not really a fan of what you're doing with him. So it's like, you know, again, for every strength, there's also a negative. Again, I can't believe I'm saying it, because I really don't like, you know, gaming journalists kind of overwhelmingly. And again, a lot of the political things that came about, you know, with Days Gone, that wasn't necessary. That was just extra stuff to push an ideology. But when it comes to the actual review scores of this being like a 7 out of 10 game, like, it's solid, it's not great, maybe it's good, it's not awful. You know, but I mean, there's probably, I assume there were some that gave it like a 4, 5, 6. I can, like a 5 out of 10, if you consider that average, that may be what you get this game. I don't know what I would have reviewed it back in 2019. I will say this. There is something kind of special to this game where it feels like, and obviously I'm playing in 2022, even when it came out in 2019, it felt like an open world game from like 2010. And that's definitely, when you say it like that, it sounds very negative, and it probably is. But there is also something kind of refreshing about that, where I didn't need some of the stuff that's in modern day open. And I also think it's okay to make an open world game that's 40 hours, not 500. So that is also a breath of fresh air, that I could beat a game in 40 hours versus 90. And not every game needs to be either of them. But you know what I mean? There is something special to that, but there is also something, I guess, negative when you say, yeah, you know, this is a game, kind of feels like 2009 to me. And again, honestly, I know I was critical of this game, but I also do kind of really love it. It's kind of a mix. Like, I love the game in some ways. I really hate the game in others, so I kind of like, you know, land in the middle. But I really chalk up a lot of it, again, to it was their first time. They jumped from a PlayStation Vita game, okay? Uncharted Golden Abyss. They jumped from that to Days Gone. It took them a long time, and you could argue, was it really worth like 6-7 years of development for that game, or however long it took? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, again, I think there's a good foundation there that you can do stuff in the future. But, you know, I would give them credit, because it's like, that is quite a jump from doing a PlayStation Vita linear Uncharted game, a prequel, to then Days Gone. And it just didn't feel fully realized, right? From the gameplay to, you know, how the game was kind of put together, didn't really feel realized. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments below of Days Gone. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turn on if you like these kind of videos. I love making them. They're very, very different, but I really do enjoy it, so we can definitely do more as time goes on. Let me know other games you'd like me to take a look at in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.